We welcome you to the February meeting of the Logan-Cache Airport Authority Board. We appreciate your interest and willingness to spend a little time here with us. So I'm going to change the order just a little bit. We'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the January 4 meeting. Minutes.
I read them, but
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor that we accept the minutes as provided. All in favor say aye.
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 As we're aware, we're having a change of in the manager position at the airport. We're lucky to have Bob Lowe with us, and we're going to have him spend a few minutes introducing himself and tell us how he got here.
Good morning. I am Bob Lowe. I was raised in Smithfield, up Smithfield Canyon, so I'm a longtime Cache Valley resident. Got married and moved to the Salt Lake Valley, where my wife worked as an ER nurse and I worked as a parole officer for almost 10 years. Then I went to flight school and I've worked as a professional helicopter pilot for the last 15 years from Gulf of Mexico, tours in the Grand Canyon, firefighting, utility stuff in Alaska, Afghanistan as a contractor. Pretty broad base of helicopter operations. Saw this job come up right at the right time when I was working as a helicopter pilot. You travel extensively, and I've got a family that I'm trying to raise, and so I jumped at the opportunity to stop traveling and to fill this role, and I'm happy I did. Got to thank John for his mentorship this first 10 days, coming in daily, pulling up a chair and spending time with me and giving me little nuggets. Hey, be aware of this, and hey, I hope you remember that, and here's an assignment, and here's a duty you need to do. Thank you, John. That has been invaluable, and I appreciate that, and I look forward to continuing that relationship that we have. I do live in Hyde Park, inside of the flight pattern of the airport, so I'm close, which I think will be helpful when it comes to snow removal and responding quickly. I'm right there. So, any questions that I didn't cover that you'd like to know?
Your phone number in case we want to get a hold of you.
Okay, 435-671-3233. And my email address is bob.low@cachecounty.gov. Anybody that has that information, just shoot me a text and give me your information as well, or send me an email with your contact info. It'd be great to have as well on my side. Anyway, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Bob. Excited to have you here. It's been a bit of a busy time since Jason left. It did snow occasionally. And in fact, there were about 10 days that we pushed snow in January. The people that the county provided proved to be very helpful. One of them made the comment, "This is more fun than plowing snow in Cornish."
don't tell Cornish that.
It probably won't run off the road like it did once.
Well, speaking of that, a slightly modified snow removal plan was put into effect, and we haven't had any trucks or blowers mistakenly leave the runway and get into the soft clay damaging the sides of the runway area. Doing that also allowed us to remove all of the berms that were creating a problem last year alongside of the taxiways. This year, those long, low wings that are coming and going do not have to worry about catching a wingtip on one of those high berms because the berms have all been removed. With the heavy snow, we had some opportunity to take care of some, we'll call it deferred maintenance. But right now, every piece of equipment that we have is operational. We've had really good support from Transport Diesel, and the drivers took it on themselves to replace some of the blades on the equipment that were badly worn. They adjusted the box blade to where it cleans more clearly, and optimistic that we'll be able to do a good job this year of continuing snow removal, and that Bob can tell us at our next meeting how successful he was. Notice the shift there.
John, before you move on from snow,
Yes.
I was wondering if we could ask Bob if next time you could give us a report on what the budget is looking like in relation to snow removal. Hopefully things continue like they've been, and we don't need to spend too much more on snow removal, but this is a new arrangement that we have with snow removal, and I think it would be good for us to keep an eye on how the costs are flowing. So if you could just come to us next time and let us know how much we budgeted for it and how much we've spent so far. We'll be nearing the end of the snow season, hopefully, by that point, and it'd be good for us to just see how that's gone.
Okay, sure thing.
With regard to that next meeting, several of us will be at the spring meeting of the Utah Airport Operators Association. So April will be the next meeting that we have. So yes, hopefully we will be out of the snow season by
It's
then.
Cache Valley, so.
Any other questions on what's been taking place at the airport? Okay. Taylor, you're up.
Yes, thank you. Should I go up to the podium or should I just stick right here by my microphone?
Why don't you go to the podium?
You bet.
Appreciate it.
So as many of you know, we've been dealing with a lease issue with Union Pacific for some property bordering the railroad. And we've been reaching out to them repeatedly over the past year. They had indicated that they would be favorable to a renegotiation of the lease. And so we sent back our counter offer, their original offer, if you recall, rather than $15,000 for 20 years was in the neighborhood of $61,000 every year. That represents a very, very significant increase in the price that we'd be paying. So we went ahead and reached out to them to provide them some more information that they may not have considered in their valuation of that property. Some of those considerations were the fact that the airport owns what's called an navigation easement, and that is what it is it's a legal right to all the air above the ground. So no structure can be built there above a certain height without the airport's approval. Similarly, Logan City has created a special airport zone, and that zoning restricts any construction in that area, including the property owned by Union Pacific, that would impact airport operations. So I shared those with Union Pacific, and they didn't get back to me. And so I continued to follow up, and I didn't hear anything. And last month, our chair, Mr. Kerr, brought to me a stack of mail that had been stacking up at the airport for several months, that were pieces of physical mail from Union Pacific, requesting payment and then finally demanding payment based on the new lease terms. And so I was not aware of that mail, and I don't think, I think it was an oversight that it wasn't being responded to. So I immediately reached out to Union Pacific and looked for a different person to talk to. Instead of their real estate manager of field operations, just their general field operations manager, Matt Jansen. And he let me know that the real estate manager, Rick Harris, they had done a reshuffle of what territories they were responsible for, and Rick Harris was working on a different territory than Utah, but that he had kept this specific project. And they also had gone through some IT problems, that their email domains had changed. So I guess my emails weren't getting through. And so anyway, I was able to link up with them finally, and I had a good hour-long or so conversation the week of the 16th. And I shared all that information again in person, over the phone with Mr. Harris. And he agreed that the area needs a comprehensive reappraisal. So they are reappraising it, and I was due to talk to them this past week, but the appraiser for Union Pacific has not yet finished his work. So I have a meeting scheduled to speak with Mr. Harris from Union Pacific and their appraiser next week. That is Wednesday the 7th. It was scheduled for this week, so I had hoped to have a more comprehensive update for you today, but that meeting was pushed back to next week. But with the information that we provided, it seems like they understand that that property is not as valuable as they thought it was, that it's not valuable commercial property like to the south. And so we anticipate a much more favorable result going forward, and I will bring that to you as soon as I have it in hand.
Okay. An explanation about the mail. It seems that it's easier to deliver the mail at our box out there if you don't take time to read the addressee's name. Because the mail is delivered randomly. I was going through the empty boxes, all of which were full of mail, including the missing letters from Union Pacific. And discussions have been had with the postmaster. He's written instructions, and it's apparently too early to see if that's taken effect, because I went over a week later and found several pieces of misdelivered mail. So we'll continue that effort. One of our patrons missed going to the Indy 500 because his ticket was delivered to somebody else's box and he never got his ticket. So we're not the only ones that have suffered from the post office failing to deliver.
But thankfully, I was able to iron out some of those creases, and it seems like we should be expecting a more favorable lease term here in the near future. So,
Go ahead, you.
I was just going to ask, Taylor, are you confident that the appraiser has the information that you sent to Mr. Harris? He's got it, but has he passed that on to the appraiser?
that's my understanding based on our conversation.
Now, this is our lease for the property, probably for our safe area. We're not buying the property, we're just leasing it from them.
That's correct.
Pacific. And if we fail to lease it from them, what are they going to do with it?
Well, so we discussed some of these options in the past year. That piece of property happens to have one of our fences on it. And because of FAA regulations, if we do not have access to that lease and we have to move that fence onto what the airport actually owns, that will breach this membrane of airspace that the fence can only be so tall, and as it approaches the runway, it needs to be shorter and shorter, but FAA regulations require that the fence be a certain height to keep off animals, and my understanding is it's shorter actually than it should be.
Correct. The fence on the runway, this is parallel running north-south on the main runway. It is located to the east of the main runway. Ideally, you want to have an 8-foot fence, and that's what's surrounding 3 of the 4 sides of the airport, if it were a true rectangle. On that east side, instead of being 8 feet, it's 6 feet tall because there is an airspace issue. It's Part 77 surface, but imagine that this floor is flat and the bench over to the right is as high as something can get. Ideally, it would be the height of the front bench, but because of the distance from the runway, it can only be that particular shorter height. And so that affects the height going out. There's a secondary component that with the runway down the middle, there can be nothing within X width away from the runway. And that's the object-free zone. So that's for absolutely nothing there unless it's a sign that can break apart or a light that you can go and kick over for safety sense. So bringing it in closer then penetrates that area that you want nothing on the ground. So it can be where it's at now at a reduced height because it's outside that no build zone at all, but it's shorter because of that imaginary airspace going up.
So to summarize, it is mission critical that we maintain that fence where it is. And so
To fulfill our FAA requirements.
that's correct.
So at that point, if the Union Pacific doesn't do that, then they're going to violate the FAA rules? I mean, if they can't remove it because of federal requirement, right? I assume?
Well, it's on their
Is the
property. I don't
fence
think they
itself
can
a
take it.
requirement?
It doesn't
For
matter.
the protection from wildlife and for security
Okay.
is.
So we would have to explore more aggressive options if they decided to not budge with the lease. But I explained also to Union Pacific's representative, Mr. Harris, that this is a small municipal airport, has a very limited budget, and we need that fence there. And I explained some of these reasons, and they seemed understanding and friendly to that. And based on the fact that we already have the avigation easement and there's already zoning restrictions, that land is not very valuable. It can't be developed. It can't be built upon. So it's commercial value to them for future leases to other possible leaseholders is fairly minimal, and I think they understand that.
Is there
So
any chance they'd be willing to sell it to us?
it's possible. I can explore that option. I have not been directed to explore that option. I can.
I mean, up to the fence? Between wherever our property line is and the fence? Whatever that space is.
I can explore that for sure.
It might be cheaper in the long run than having to do this all the time.
You may be right.
Taylor, do you know if they have a requirement for a certain amount of space on the side of their track?
I am not aware of any specific requirement that they have, so I can find out.
It'd be interesting if they have a similar requirement that they have to maintain their
Yeah.
space, and then at that point, they have to maintain the fence anyway. So, I mean, there might be a
Except
requirement on them.
The fence is ours. We've installed the fence.
Yeah. If they have a requirement to protect their space, it may be a moot point, but I understand. So I was just curious how it ties to them.
That's for everybody to
Right.
use on the
We can explore alternative options if they don't provide if they're not willing to budge on a good lease option for us, so.
But you're feeling pretty good about where you're headed.
I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling pretty confident based on my discussion so far.
That's good.
Any other
Go forth
questions?
and conquer, as they say.
All right, I will have a more comprehensive report hopefully for you at our next meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Taylor.
The state Department of Aeronautics has a program for beautification of airports where they give Thank you. I'll get to that grant in a minute. Aaron, you have a request.
A small one. We also have issues with the mail. I get federal aviation information sent to mailboxes that I have to tell them I never received. And when the 60 days expires, they start threatening me with fines. I say, well, please send it to me. And apparently it might be sitting in one of your other boxes. So if you see it there for me, please pass it my way. And if you need me to sign something to postmaster, go with you. I'll go talk. I hate getting yelled at by the FAA. I keep getting reminded that our students' money is being used to pay for electricity to the tower and the gate. They keep wanting to shut it down and cut off that access over there. And I talked with them. Our conversation kind of came along the lines of, well, if we got a bonus or benefit for that, like $100 a year to leave the electricity to the gate, but that comes back as a notice on our lease agreement that that electricity stays in place. They seemed favorable to that, but they're chomping at the bit to not have students' money go to pay for the airport required gate. So there we are. That's what I'm asking. The second part of this one, again, I said a few small ones. I've also gotten permission from my boss that if you wanted to pave over areas around where we own in J2 and over by J5 for us to put airplanes out of the way of other entities on Juliet, that if you invoiced us, we'd be willing to pay back that area and lease that additional ground and the upgrades needed for that one, so that we can keep everyone on Juliet happy, or as I guess commonly known, University Row, a little less antsy about our planes possibly being pulled out as we get 3 or 4 out to get one that we need and push the rest back in. That was 2 parts.
I've got some questions.
Go for it.
Did I understand you to say that you were going to pave it? Or the
No.
expectation was that we would
If you
pave it?
guys could do it and then I get the invoice, I get to jump about 5 different meetings up on campus.
Okay.
But, I mean, we'd probably need some sort of a guarantee that it would be paid.
I'll sign a lease agreement with it being improved, and then that way you'll have the guarantee that once improved, I will start the payments.
The expectation would be that we would pave it at our expense
Yes.
and your lease
Or
rate would go up.
I understood
Yep.
you to say you
It
would.
wouldn't be a reimbursement.
Or I could reimburse if that's what's necessary on your end, if you need the cash back. We need the space to try and keep everyone happy.
Okay, so
I get
we,
worse than calling me up about our planes blocking them. It is our fault. I am moving them as fast as I can. But 400 students, 60 flight instructors, moving parts, and some people don't care.
yep. So reimbursement is an option. It's
Yes.
just not to increase our service to you.
Correct.
Okay. Now, with regard to the gate,
Which gate?
this is the
The
one.
front gate, the one that comes right in by the tower. So electricity runs through FL9, through a conduit to the tower, and from the tower underneath the ground to the gate. So electricity is all coming off the meter for Utah State over in FL9.
The nearest electricity that we have is that light standard, I believe, for the, that doesn't work on the ramp, but there is electricity there. And so the alternative would be to take that power, which we are charged for, run it 10 feet north to cut it, turn into my measurement, 10 feet north to cut into the box at the tower, and 10 feet south to go to the box on the gate. Excavate, conduit, and redo. So that would be the trade-off between the $100 credit a year versus actually doing this.
Is this $100 a year
Huh?
or a month?
A year.
A year, yeah. Just something so I can tell the university
That you're
that
being-
my students aren't penalized by having to pay for a gate that they can't have access to.
Okay. Sounds to me like $100 a year is a lot cheaper than digging 2 10-foot trenches. But
Is that a motion?
Yes. I move we reduce rent by $100 a year to the USU, I don't know what to call it, but
Lease.
to USU in exchange for not changing the power to the gate and the tower.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded, and I'm assuming to both of you that it would appear on their invoice for rent, they would be billed the normal amount, but $100 credit would appear on that invoice. So that if at such time as we're working on that lamp standard, it might then be a good time to actually clean it up.
Yep,
Is that a friendly
Yes.
change?
absolutely.
With that change, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming with a solution. We appreciate that. Hey, on that parking, is that something we can have someone get some quotes on and pursue?
Oh, the parking lights?
No, the parking lot.
The parking expansion.
Blacktop over by J2 and J5.
We'll ask Armstrong to get with Aaron with a layout plan and actually sketch in, and Armstrong can give us a reasonable estimate and a funding method.
Perfect, thank you.
Now, the beautification grant. Ryan has thankfully agreed to shepherd this and is going to give us a little more information on the grant and where we are in the process.
Yeah, I went in, I've drafted some of the response. There's about 8 pages of response. So, and then I've worked with John here to kind of have him review and make sure. But I think I've got it mostly filled out. I'm happy to send a copy to the rest of the board so you can kind of just take a look. But it would be to help us fix up the tower and work on that. So I don't remember the date it's due, but I can send it out to you today. And then if you have any comments, just let me know. But then I can get it submitted if the board would like to have us apply for that. So anyway, I don't know what more you'd like to talk about on that, but any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Are there any questions at this point?
So what aspects of, what are you actually, well, I guess when you send it to me, I'll understand what you're asking for. That's fine.
Yeah, I'll send it out to you and then you can
Okay.
kind of get there.
you.
I sent it to John, but I should have probably sent it to all of you, so I'll do that.
Thank you.
Yep.
It's not expected that the grant would be sufficient to fully restore to its former glory, but would function as seed money to make it easier for us to go to those who have expressed an interest in participating in eventually bringing it back to making it a useful structure, possibly as a limited access museum or something of this type. Vector, Helena, and our treats, they didn't spell her name correctly. It's Helena, who was born in Logan.
Yeah, so this is kind of a treat for me.
I'm gonna have to use your big girl voice.
I don't know if I can promise that. I'm quite little. So my name is Helena Glenn. I'm from Vector Airport Systems. And like John said, I was born here. So this is like a treat for me. I haven't lived here for 10 years, but it's like coming home. I'm just going to hook up here. Okay, perfect. Hopefully I don't trip over myself. Okay. Oh, okay, that's good. All right. So, I met John at the Heber Airport Conference, and John was kind enough to tell me a little bit about the Logan Airport and some of the changes that we are doing and helping assist to partner with many airports in Utah in creating additional streams of revenue for airports. As I've come to understand, I'm actually new to the aviation industry. I've only been with Vector for 6 months. But I've come to love this agency and the people in it, and see just the amazing people in aviation and the passion and the love here. And so to continue to grow airports and continue to contribute to the sustainability, care, maintenance of the airports, Vector has partnered with several Utah airports, and we actually just got our signed agreement back from Heber yesterday, so they'll be onboarding with us in 2 months. We're also partnering with Spanish Fork, or excuse me, will be with Spanish Fork, hopefully. St. George is a current client, Provo is a current client, and Ogden Regional Airport are current clients. And they are all partnering with Vector to have an automated process for not only aircraft identification and capture, but successful collection of landing fees. So that's what I'm here to give, just a brief overview about Vector, what we're doing, how we're helping to contribute to the airports that we work with sustainability, and present some options for you. John was kind enough to lend me your data with Vertower, and we've come up with some projections and some suggestions on landing fees. So we'll work through that and can craft the landing fees which are most agreeable to the board and to everyone present. So a little bit about Vector. We were founded in 2005 and based in the Washington, D.C. area. And the reason why we were founded was because we really saw the breaks in the chain in landing fee collections. So for airports that have had a traditional method of collecting landing fees, this has been typically by an FBO or perhaps by the airport itself, where landing fees would be collected in a very manual process when operators would be present, and then the airport or FBO would have to dedicate focused time and attention to collecting those landing fees and to chasing down the correct owner or operator, being diligent in follow-up if they were being difficult to reach, having to, investigate the correct address and contact information if that had changed. And so Vector was founded to really provide not only an automated solution to help facilitate and give back time to the airports and FBO staff, but to create an efficient process that none of your landing fees are going to be missed. You have visibility into all of the operations captured through our system and through our direct partnership with Vertower, which we partner cohesively with to provide complete visibility into all your data. So no other operation is going to be missed, and that all collections are successfully and efficiently going to be collected by a team that is dedicated to collecting. We are growing rapidly since 2005. We're now in 60 plus airports nationwide, about 3 or 4 of the airports I mentioned here in Utah, but we have clients on the East Coast, Texas, California, and growing very rapidly as more and more airports are looking to have a streamlined solution that doesn't add any extra time or burden to their staff. So what is the main benefits and why are we growing so rapidly? What airports really love about Vector and our Plane Pass solution is that when we typically partner with an airport that has been collecting, because of that gap in that system, because of the manual process that we are now automating, we typically see a 10 to 20% increase without changing your fee structure, any other thing in your landing fee rates, simply by having an automated process. This, coupled with our 99.6 collection success rate, has enabled airports to see that increase in revenue. For instance, I'm talking to an airport in New York who had an FBO currently collecting long-standing relationship. And we actually compared data versus their current collections and what Vector estimates we could collect, taking over their process. And there was a $100,000 annual gap in revenue. So that's landing fees that the airport should have been receiving, but simply because they had a more outdated, inefficient system, that was where they were missing out on revenue that really is due to the airport. So we have created a very efficient online monthly portal that enables operators to pay easily and seamlessly. We also are able, like I mentioned, to relieve the burden of capturing all of those operations and trying to devote time and attention to collecting those fees that are due from airport staff. The best part about Vector is the fact that we have no upfront cost. There's no implementation charge whatsoever. We're a revenue share model, and I'll explain how that works in a second. And then with our easy plugin with the VirTower operations data, we have an easy API connection. We'll hook up to that data efficiently, and this provides a more seamless solution with the data that you already have. This is a quick testimonial of some of the airports that we partner with. As you can see, we're everywhere, back east in East Hampton, on the west coast with Sonoma County, Aspen, Pitton County Airport, which is a big destination airport. They charge some of the highest landing fee rates in the country, as well as Dallas Love Field in Texas. So some of the main benefits that airports see in our Plane Pass solution is the fact that our solution doesn't require any installation. There's no manual inputs or tracking or information needed from the FBO or the airport. Our complete operation is fully automated. It's going to capture 100% of your operational data and correctly identify those aircrafts to the correct owner and operator. This runs 24/7, 365 days a year, and how we enable to capture all of your operations is, though we have a partnership with VirTower, we merge VirTower's data with a fusion of multiple sources, including surveillance, flight plan, and ADS-B data to provide comprehensive coverage. So we're not just single sourcing, we're merging and purging data sources to verify and confirm accuracy. This we consolidate into a single cohesive database of billable operations. Then, once we capture that data, we're going to apply your specific fee rules based on your regulations and your ordinances, and we will never waive fees based on fuel sales or as favors. This is, as I have come to know, a typical process with FBOs, is that they will sometimes waive landing fees to encourage fuel sales. Now, on that note, we don't want to disencourage fuel sales. As a matter of fact, we want to continue to help encourage your fuel sales. So I worked with a airport it was a small private airport in Bernie Stage, Texas. And they wanted to continue to encourage their fuel sales, but still capture revenue from operators that were not purchasing fuel, which typically is smaller aircraft. And we worked cohesively with them to design a custom rate structure that it was fair and equitable, because you need to be in alignment with FAA standards, but also was able to capture revenue from those smaller aircraft that typically weren't buying fuel, and then encourage those other operators who were buying fuel to continue to do so. We crafted that unique structure of in-landing fee rates, and it's actually been very successful. We've been very happy with how that has worked out. So in speaking to kind of the secret sauce about Vector, and this is really how we are enabled to continue to boast that 99.6 collection success rate, is through our years of working with and partnering with various airports across the country. We have built meticulously a proprietary database of owner and operators that we're constantly updating as new aircraft are added, as new operators come into the industry, to that over 200,000 now active aircraft and over 134,000 active aircraft owners. So this is something that we're constantly updating and keeping up to date as far as contact information, ensuring that if a plane was sold, that all information remains updated and correct. And that's really where we've been able to really shine and uphold that 99.6 collection success rate. This is all done by our in-house US-based staff, where we will handle all aspects of invoicing, service, and collections. So at the airport is not going to get customer complaints. They're not going to call you and start complaining about landing fees. Anything in relation to Vector and Plane Pass, we will take all of those calls for you. Also wanted to ensure, because this is a very trusting relationship, we know that we're handling your money, and we wanted to give to the airport complete transparency. And we do this through our web-based portal that I'll show you a screenshot of. This shows you visualization of all of your airport's operations. So everything that we see, you are going to see. In addition to that portal, we also provide exportable reports that will show all operations and accounting information. This gives you a lot more visibility into what you're actually collecting in landing fees. I've been surprised to learn that some FBOs don't provide reports, and there isn't as much visibility into landing fee collections. So this was something that Vector very much wanted to provide as an additional source of not only keeping transparency and an honest relationship, but also this is valuable information that the airport needs. So this is a graph of how our system actually works. So as you can see, it starts with that capture of data through multiple sources that we're obtaining that data, such as VirTower, radar, flight tracking, satellite-based tracking, and ADS-B data. Once that data comes into our system, it is analyzed by our operations analysts, which then apply the fee rules and structure. We will generate all invoices and send those out to the correct aircraft operators. Any questions, complaints, disputes are all handled by our in-house team, where we will then process all payments. Payments will go to our secure escrow account, and then Vector will take its fee off the top and remit the rest of the funds to use the airport. So Vector, it's a revenue share model, and that is how we work. Vector's fee typically is 25% of the total collections. Now that is not, I want to illustrate, not what we have billed, but what we have been successful in collecting. So that incentivizes us to achieve our success rate and to collect as much revenue as possible for the airport.
So you said 25%.
Yes, ma'am. In addition to that online portal, as I mentioned, we're going to generate monthly reports for the airport to preview and ensure complete accuracy. In regards to, yeah. So this is an actual screen of the portal, and I'm going to try and zoom in here a little bit so you can actually see. So this is actually a screenshot of the actual portal that is provided to all of the airports. So on the left, you can see all arrivals and departures. You can filter this view on a monthly, daily, or weekly view. In addition, you would see the date and time stamps on the left, the activity, so the arrivals and departures, which are marked in red and green. You see the origin and destination of those airports. That particular operator is going, so the airports they departed from and are arriving to. You see the aircraft tail number, you see the model type, engine type, as well as the maxed takeoff weight. This is important as because most airports charge via per 1,000 pounds a certain dollar amount. So we have that also included in the portal for you. And then right next to that is the fee. So I apologize if it's not very clear, but as you can see, each aircraft has generated a fee. So aircraft below a certain minimum weight, I believe you can see, such as this about the middle of the screen is a £0. That means that that aircraft did not generate a fee. Other aircraft you can see did generate a fee, but that fee has been crossed out. This is to indicate in our system that this operator has been exempted from fees and is either a based operator at the airport or is a signatory airline which has been exempted from fees. So we work cohesively with the airport to ensure that the base list is accurate. We'll work with you to add operators as they become based at the airport. And in the case if an operator were to receive, a based operator were to receive a fee from Vector, and should have been applied to that exemption list, which can happen occasionally, especially as we're starting starting up in that first 3 months. That operator would then contact us at Vector. We at Vector would contact the airport. We would confirm that that operator and tail number is based at the airport and should be exempted from fees. They would be applied to that based and exempted list and no longer receive a fee moving forward. That fee would be void. They wouldn't receive any more fees. So that's how we work cohesively to keep that exemptions list updated. So in addition to that portal that you have 24/7 access to, we're also going to provide you monthly billed detailed reports. You can see any adjustments that have happened. You will see a monthly collection report that shows all of the changes, and this can actually show you visibility into how your airport is tracking through the year. What are your busiest months? How you have had any changes or fluctuations within those operations and collections. This is a screenshot of the operator payment portal. So we know that in today's world, it's the easier you make it to pay, the easier it is to get operators to pay. So we have an online payment portal where operators can pay with a credit card or a check to our secure lockbox. And then in this portal, oh, pardon me, if I zoom in here, you see the operators are getting a monthly invoice not only for Logan Airport, but they're getting an invoice for all of the airports that they're traveling to for the entire month. So if they were flying from Logan to Spanish Fork to Ogden to Heber, they would get not only a bill for Logan, but get a bill for all of the airports that Vector collects the fees on behalf of. So this incentivizes operators to stay up to date as well with their payments because they know that Vector partners with multiple airports, and so it is in the operator's best interest to be in good standing with Vector. You would see the date and time stamps of all of the each particular invoice. You see the fee rules applied as well as the airport code that fee was generated, and then you would see the total as well. So again, they can pay here, and this also provides visibility for the operators and shows them all of the data, all of the invoices that they generated for that month. So this is a sample of a couple of different landing fee rates and structures that we work with. You can see that there's no two airports are the same. And even though there is kind of a general consensus as far as landing fees by charging that per 1,000 pounds, some airports charge a flat rate. Some airports put a minimum weight and some bill all the way down to 0. It's very unique based on your specific operations and unique to each airport. They're like humans. No two are the same. This is a quick list of all of the Utah airports and the rates that they are charging. So St. George is charging $1.05 per 1,000 pounds. Ogden's charging $1.25, which I would say is pretty normal per 1,000 pounds. Heber, being a little bit more of a destination airport, is charging $4 per 1,000 pounds. And then Provo is charging $0.97 per 1,000. I believe that Provo is going to be increasing their rate structure. They're looking into it, as well as St. George. I don't know the time frame on that, but for kind of getting an average, we found in doing an analysis for Bountiful, who is looking to onboard with us next month as well. We found $1.25 per thousand was a good rate. Across the nation, $2 is a very average rate. So that was my quick presentation. Was there any questions before I go into Logan's unique operations? Okay, perfect. So this is the projections estimate that I had my team create based on Vertower's operations, which John was very kind enough to provide. So your base list has been applied here, and I've gone with the national average of $2 per 1,000 pounds, but I would like to get your feedback. This sheet is actually interactive, and if you would like to see different rates, please feel free, and we can...
Enlarge that at all, or not
Yes,
really?
ma'am. So this is showing by month. Oh, excuse me.
So this is all general aviation and not just commercial?
Correct. It's GA and commercial here. And then all of your based operators have been exempted, so they are not being charged these rates. So a total that we see here is just under 30,000 for the year. And this is with the landing fee of $2 per 1,000 pounds and excluding all aircraft under 8,000. So that would be the annual total. If you can see down here, I apologize.
So do we know what percentage of airplanes that land at the airport are based at Logan? I mean, I'm guessing it's a pretty high percentage.
You do have quite a few based aircraft, yes.
They're all exempted from that.
Yes. This is an actual activity count by weight class, so you can see that a majority of the activity that's generated at Logan Airport is in that $2,000 to $3,000, or excuse me, weight range, and I would assume that's the training that is happening. You can see this is actually broken into activity count on this side.
And
So
currently, the FBO does collect these fees. Is that their job, or is it airport, or that's the problem?
We only charge landing fees to the football team USU brings in, so currently airport's not charging landing fees. And then we pay a rent fee to the airport.
Mhm.
And then we pick and choose and charge normally jet traffic to reimburse ourselves.
Thank you.
So if you wanted to see, so that's at $2.08 per thousand, and then weight exclusion of 8,000. Is there any other rate structures you would like to see? Would you like to?
Seems like you've talked about most of the airports being at $1.25.
Would you like to see that?
Yep.
So that puts you at 18.5.
You take 25% of that.
Correct, ma'am.
But if we're not collecting any right now, maybe that's...
Oh, apologies. That was 4 and not 5.
And just because your other slide had some that were just commercial traffic, can you show that? Last slide you had before this showed some of them only charge for commercial traffic?
Yes, I might be able to. Let me ping my operations analyst, see if he's able to join us. Out of office today.
Just looked like there was a drop-down list, operator type.
Yes.
I was curious if that was where you were going.
Yes. I believe, my analyst is unfortunately out, but I can absolutely get that number to you and email it to you.
So in B3, that's not where you could change that?
I'm sorry?
In cell B3, yeah, there you go.
Okay, yeah, I can do.
I don't know if we have much that.
All right, let me refresh that. Yeah, I'm not sure. It doesn't seem to be. So here would be the total, I believe. So it would be Allegiant, Sun Country, Swift Air and Arrow, and Contour Airlines, as well as SkyWest, which leads to 4,582.
But when you,
I just saw that there was another one on there
yeah,
that just said that they do commercial on your previous slide. So on the
Okay.
presentation.
when you use commercial, you're thinking in terms of the 150,000-pound type aircraft.
Yeah.
Scheduled or chartered airlines, not what we would call corporate business.
Correct. And this is exempting those corporate jets in this particular sheet.
While she's looking at that, we recorded 900 corporate landings last year, over 900.
You get quite a few next jets.
Non-Logan-based?
Yes.
So I will have that filter applied, and I will get that, email those annual sums over to you.
I have kind of a general question. Do we know, is Dr. Jones in his analysis of our airport and financial situation, are we expecting him to give us recommendations about landing fees?
I mean, I think he's going to give us an overall group of recommendations, so certainly we'd want to see that before we make any decisions. This is interesting information, so.
That was
Yeah.
my thought. I'd love to see what his recommendations are in relation to landing fees based on his evaluation, assuming that that's going to be part of his recommendation.
He is planning to be here for the full week, first week of April.
Good, well, this gives us some additional information to consider.
And I will go ahead and email this information to John so that you can look at it at your leisure. I will get those updated numbers for you. And any other rate structures you were interested, any other information I can provide, please let me know. Thank you for your time.
Is it just a SaaS service?
Yes, sir.
It's a SaaS.
It is. It's, I mean, SaaS, I come from the software space, so it's a little bit more on the more service end than a software, but the software is absolutely included in that. So you would get that portal, all of that information. We do have a couple of add-ons as well, like light flight tracking and so forth, but you have a very comprehensive program with Vertower, and they provide you that most amazing, more efficient live tracking. But we do also have those capabilities. Was there anything else I can provide?
Any other questions? We appreciate your being here.
Appreciate you inviting me. Thank you.
And anyone who wishes to give input, would ask that you do it in writing and maybe get it to us by the 15th of March so that the board will have a chance to consider that along with the input from Dr. Jones. We have a hangar request. Judd, you bring that up. Stephen Anderson, who currently has two airplanes at Logan Airport, is wanting to consolidate into a single hangar area, and it would be generally part of the taxi lane India complex, but it would be serviced on Echo. So it would be that diagonal shaped blue space. Excuse me.
Number one, EN number, it's
sorry, it's not coming great through, but EN number 1. The basis is taxi lane, that's technically the entry road right now. The current gate is located right here, and that's the entrance road. It goes to the, the majority of the hangar developments, but the entry road will have to move with the development of India. It's currently on the CIP list for a couple of years from now, but that would involve a relocation of the entrance road for the hangars, still coming off the airport road, just down on the corner. Thus, because that road will be cut off by the development of Taxi Lane India. Taxi Lane Echo currently has a number of hangars already existing on it, and it arbitrarily changes to an entrance road here, but it very well could stretch onto Taxi Lane India, and that's why it says F just for future, because it's not technically identified as a taxi lane right now. The only consideration is this property that's, this larger property has a partial fence going along this edge. It's a kind of just a gray line right there. That fence would need to be removed for taxi lane safety area. That same object-free area that we were discussing with the railroad fence, taxi lanes also have an area that needs to be clear of objects. That fence would fall into it for this taxi lane, but.
It's okay right now because there's no hangar.
Exactly. And that, but that's why it's listed as future, because it would need minor changes, such as the removal of a, not sure of the history of that fence, that definitely supersedes my time here, but the fence partially encloses some of this hangar, the FL3, FL3A hangars. But I don't know the history of why there's a partial fence there.
As part of lease, when a new owner took over that parcel, the requirement was that they would remove the vegetation and fence in the first period of their lease. So that agreement of removing those obstructions is already in place.
Are they doing it?
The chain link has been removed, the poles are still there, and the vegetation has been cut, but not yet hauled away. In fact, that.
When we removed the vegetation, we discovered the electrical line to the fuel tank was not buried. So we've got a contractor coming, it should be the end of February, March, to dig the trench to bury it and remove the poles.
Wow.
So Mr. Anderson has requested a 50 by 180 foot long, consists of 3 hangars with full-size 45-foot doors. The hangar will be steel construction manufactured by Nucor Building Systems and would be built to the necessary specifications from a FAA structure request.
You say he has 2 hangars now.
He has.
How do we treat that when they go from, does he give up the lease on the 2 he has? Does he keep those and add 3 more?
We don't have a policy for that, but he would still have to meet the requirements of, maybe he wants to be a landlord for 5 hangars, then rent 2 or 3 of them out. We don't have a prescription for that, but he would still have to meet the requirements of the lease, which is the hangar space be used primarily for aviation purposes.
But if he wanted to release those, I just was curious if he wants to or doesn't. I just didn't know what his options were.
Yeah, those would be, those would be an option. On the plus side for the airport, that would be hangar space for 3 additional airplanes.
Judd, from your perspective, is that good use of that space? I've seen multiple iterations of larger aircraft, smaller aircraft. This is a little bit of a different layout than what we've seen in the past. Does that restrict us with what we can put in? I see you've marked some up there, but.
We have marked some up. So this one, I believe it is a very good use of this space. Taxi Lane India, the yellow obviously, the yellow is future taxi lane, the blue is future buildings. You can obviously see existing large, these are the corporate size hangars on the existing taxi lane India. So that portion of India, to maximize the space, it would use large or be benefited by larger aircraft. This taxi lane Echo in this hangar that's in discussion, it's kind of cut off. There's really not a good use for it or a way to tie it into bigger hangars servicing larger aircraft. So it really is kind of an extension of the existing, not sliding over, but the smaller hangars that are to the left on this picture. You can see that the dimensions are approximately the same size as those smaller hangars. Obviously, this one's just a longer building, but there's not a way where larger aircraft could access that future taxiway Echo area. So it really would be dedicated to the smaller general aviation aircraft.
And so, Steve, then you'd come down on E, then you'd come down on A to get to the. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, because currently, if you're going to, we zoom out some. If you're going from the apron to Echo 1, Echo 3, you would come in on one of these perpendicular taxi lanes to access these hangars. In this case, instead of coming up and turning left, it'd be coming up and turning right.
And would Mr. Anderson bear the cost of the approach on all of to the hangar? There's really no cost to the airport, correct?
That would be up to the airport. That is the traditional way that hangars are done, is that it's a lease of the square footage, and basically you're having to, the builder is traditionally responsible for the driveway, for lack of a better word, from existing, but that is 100% up to the airport to determine.
So if you say that that's a good location for larger aircraft, for hangars for larger aircraft, is that?
The yellow portion, but the way to maximize the yellow taxi lane, which is, if you can see the cursor, this is that existing taxi lane India. Mm-hmm. It is built for larger aircraft, so there's more space between the hangars. Mm-hmm. And then extending that, these other 5 blue buildings would be focused on larger aircraft.
Okay.
This particular one, there's really not a way to connect this building or this square footage of the existing field. There's really no way to connect that with the space requirements for safe operations of larger aircraft.
Well, because you put the other building in the road.
Right, but well, yes, but the space between, due to this existing structure, this building here, or these buildings here and here, there's just not enough space where large aircraft could ever access this stretch of pavement. So, yes.
As a developing hat,
Mm-hmm.
It seems like taking the road down there parallel to A, that now you have, I mean, lots of times we have roads that we can access both the right and the left side, right? So that you can access, why would you not have that road? The question I come is making sure that we plan for the future, right? I mean, that's the goal.
Absolutely.
So why not have a road that backs A21 through A33? Why not have a row of hangars that would back that and move that road to the north, so that you could, I mean, wouldn't that allow you more hangar space in the future? I mean, if you only can access one set of hangars per road, the cost per road to maintain is much higher to access one set of hangars off of only one side of that road. Does that make sense?
Are you saying, Ryan, put another row of hangars behind that A row?
Yes, absolutely. Because then, at that point, if you have a road, you can service hangars from both sides of that road. As you've got it laid out, you have to have those A hangars access to the south, and then we've got 16 and 17 accessing from their south. But it seems very inefficient from a development standpoint. You would have only one side of the road being serviced by your hangars. Then that doubles the number of roads you have. That's created a problem down below in our Bs and Cs, because then they have roads on both sides of the hangars instead of having back-to-back hangars and doubling the number of spaces we have. What's that?
That's really, so to understand right, the blue box that I just drew.
May or may not, depending on how you lay it out.
So just to make sure I'm understanding, the blue box that I just drew, you're saying build hangars there, and then to the right of that blue box, put in the new entrance road.
No, he's moving the blue box north of the entrance road and turning the extra entrance road into a taxi lane.
No, I'm turning that blue box into
Hangars. And then to the right of that,
because at that point, you can have large ones in that box, either way. But then you have a road to the north of that, then that's your entrance road, which then you come in. I mean, it places less of a road. Now you don't have your entrance road and your taxiway F or India. But the more you can service, more hangars you can service off of a single road rather than doubling up the number of your roads, affects our maintenance long term, for sure.
it's definitely a possibility. As was stated, the only disadvantage, well, it's not even a disadvantage, it's just an alternative. By building hangars here, we then put another taxiway to the right of this blue box that I just drew. That could be a taxiway / entrance road instead of having a dedicated road. So the biggest result would be a reduction in the size of larger type hangars that could be built on India. But it's definitely, that's an option, and that actually is the exact next step of the airport master plan that's under development right now, is literally this exact, what route do you want to take?
Well, if you scroll down to your see the A through A, no, the next one over, sorry. Go over on the B side.
Oh.
If you scroll to the south, you have several that you don't have the access or ability to have another row of hangars. Yeah, see C right there, C1 through 8, and C2 through 8. Those have roads on both sides of them instead of having two sets of hangars to get it back to back. You now have two roads that are servicing, cost-wise, you're servicing that with full road. I mean, that's
My
a
guess
very
is,
costly
my
way to
guess
do
is
it.
those are the older hangars that have been at the airport for a long time.
They are, and it's very possible, and it all comes down to space organization, because the distance between this D4 hangar and these hangars over here, that specific space between those is a set space that you want to keep. The object-free area, the same way the object-free area between C4 and C5, and then again C5 and B5. So you absolutely could have built C8 and C9. Those could be back to back. And then you would have rows on either side, or excuse me, taxi lanes on either side. But it would, then it just changes the configuration of moving over. You know, if everything slides down, we can see that exactly with this T hangar situation up here, where, you know, this is a mutual or a common wall T hangar, so planes access from Foxtrot and from Gulf to this particular hangar. But a larger hangar, you can see that there's only access on the one side. So absolutely, hangars can be built back to back. Just recognize that the only offset, it's not a plus or a minus, it's just a difference in configuration. That if those hangars go back to back, the space in front of that new hangar just has to kick out to provide the proper safe space. In the case of building hangars on this back section, so building to try to get close to scale on those, assuming that they're the same general size. Building hangars there, it would just have to then have the entrance road, that would be a both entrance road and a taxi lane.
Which cost effective wise is about the same to maintain either way.
Yep.
So the more roads we have, the more costs us to maintain.
Per square foot, absolutely, you're adding more square footage.
Right.
It's just multi-use or single use.
If you just took those 3 large blue ones to the right of the, where you just drew the long rectangle, and just slid them all to the south, to the left there, and then put the road to the north of them, basically where the curve is on that yellow part. Makes sense?
You scoop all those 3 hangars that are.
Take those 3 hangars and just slide them all to the left, and then put another one in between, in the gap where the yellow.
So you're suggesting putting an entrance road right here?
Yeah. And then just slide those over a little bit, and then you could fit one more large hangar in there.
Again, definitely a potential option. I mean, the only thing that would have to be figured out, it's not a plus or minus, it's just an unknown question, is you have now all of the entrance traffic, so everyone that's accessing any of these private hangars here are going to be coming across this taxi lane. But right now, if we build this hangar here, then people would be coming in front of that. So it's, again, it's just there's not a right or wrong answer. It's the which approach do you wish to take.
But the approach has to be determined before we decide whether the number 12 hangar can be built.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I feel like this request is premature until we figure out our master plan for this area. You said that's the next step?
Right, so the TAC has had the last working paper for about a month, and if there's any outstanding questions, otherwise we'll be submitting that to the FAA within the next week or so. Haven't gotten any significant feedback or significant changes from that. Usually we give about a month, and it's been 5 weeks, so it's right on par with that. The next step is the development alternatives that we've been developing, and so we'll be sending those out to the group here within the next couple of weeks. Development alternatives is this. Here's different development options that have different alternatives. Which ones do you like? So, I mean, it literally is that next step. It's obviously not finalized until it's finalized, but that is the stage of master planning that we are at.
One observation, I'm probably not allowed to speak, but that was a commitment to larger hangars. That's why India is so wide. So that was that commitment to that area, was to build the larger hangars, not to maximize small hangars.
I understand that can be the case, and I commit to some bigger hangars, but we don't have a very good track record on maintaining our asphalt at this point, and to be able to have an inefficient way of having asphalt, just to have more so that we have less maintenance for the ones we have, just doesn't seem like the right way to go.
Well, we could look at the options drawn out, but we would reduce, as you suggested, by moving that 50 feet north, we would reduce the length of that asphalt, but not the number of roads. All we're doing is just trading hangars for deciding whether the hangar is going to be on the south side of the road or the north side of the road. But Armstrong can do some different configurations for us to consider that.
What about the access road via the Alpha?
less traffic, it would be the less impact to that area anyway. And that, the people that come in there, that's gonna access those hangars are gonna be mostly the people in that area.
Well, several of us here, you and Scott particularly, will remember when Echo was the access road. And the FAA was so unhappy with that they actually paid for the access road to be moved to 9th West because they didn't want all of that heavy traffic in front of those hangars. And we do have more latitude now since FAA doesn't fund taxiways or taxi lanes, but still that same concern about maximizing traffic in front of hangars is a problem. Because how often does somebody pull their plane out of Alpha while they sweep their hangar? If that's the access road, people get peevish. So having a dedicated road that is not a taxi lane seems to be preferable. Yes, the way with this proposal for a 2-year period or 1 year, about the time it would be completed, there would be a road in front of this hangar. But as soon as India went in and the new access road, wherever it is placed, then we would no longer have a road and taxi lane taking the same space.
Yeah, if you put it where you were just had the yellow line, you're gonna have the same problem. The access road is on the taxi lane, then you're gonna have the same problem. There's people pulling airplanes out of the
Yeah.
And this one, the E1, for your point, isn't a big hangar anyway. So at that point, it's not.
It's just filling in the space of the big hangars. You put the big hangars first, and then you fill it with the small hangars.
Yeah. This was putting in small hangars to fill in before. I mean, it kind of gets the cart before the horse, to your point.
The way this developed is originally brought the idea of, or we were asked to come up with an idea for Taxi Lane India to deal with corporate hangars. So that's where that development came. And then it was noted that, hey, where can any small hangars go? Or that 50-foot deep, that smaller hangar. And we realized, well, there's this kind of empty lot here. So that's how this particular building, that's how this building here ended up in that spot is, hey, we did the math and realized, well, I guess you actually, if you lose that fence, you actually can fit a hangar development that could benefit a small aircraft.
But then it also limits the size of 17.
Of
India 7, sorry.
Oh, yeah, and I mean, and that is a.
It then starts to box you into what those other size of hangars can have. I mean, you're starting to box yourself in once you start building, and if it's reserved for larger, and we start building smaller in order to do it, then we're boxing in the bigger, and it's only as big as what's left.
Correct, and I think the 17 came about as it's the size or a little bit larger, the same square footage as the largest hangar that exists on the airport now. I think that's how that's estimated size, number 17 got in there.
Our experience is.
But it obviously wasn't tied to any specific request of.
Our experience is that the large hangars don't want to go deep, they want to go wide.
Yeah.
Because that extra depth on India 7 would not be marketable based on our experience. Nobody's going to go 100 by 200 for a hangar there, if the 200 is its depth, because it doesn't make, the back is not usable without rearranging aircraft every time somebody needs to get out.
What is the label on this one? EN1, what's the N?
North.
I believe that's how it was listed as, yes, it is north because it's Echo, since these others were originally labeled E135, it's going to the north.
That's Echo North.
Yeah.
One. So I just have a question about this proposal. Is this person who's proposing, are they the next person on our waiting list?
No, they aren't. They have given a $500 deposit. The majority of the people on our waiting list are people that want these 100-foot deep hangars. There are a couple of people on the list that have turned down previous 50 by 50 hangars. We can go to them and if they want to build a 50 by 180 foot hangar there, that's out. Nobody has made a request for this configuration of hangar. If we break that into 50 by 50s, we reduce our leasable space because as independent hangars, we have to have 20 feet between each of the hangars. Doing it this way, we shift that fire burden to the developer tenant because he then has to provide the fire separation through firewalls. So by spreading that out, we would reduce our revenue. This maximizes the revenue to the airport.
Should we, if we have people already on the list, should we at least ask them? Say, you're next on the list, here's the size of space we have. Are you interested in that? Would that be in compliance with our policy?
That would be good policy, good approach.
So I think we delay this request till our next meeting
Okay?
because there seem to be some questions and I think I would prefer to be a little further along in the master plan process too.
Definitely.
Anyone opposed to deferring?
It's not relevant to the motion or that decision, but just something to keep in mind on the big picture of the master plan. When it comes to, it's more direct towards location of taxi lanes, like this taxi lane India or hotel up at the top. Hangar dimensions and location of individual sizes, these are more placeholders versus to build here, you have to build one this size. If it were 5 feet deeper or 15 feet wider, this is the location of large corporate hangars is what this is representative of within the master plan. It's not explicit square footage. I mean, the same way up at this H2 and H4, if someone came in instead of wanting to build two 50 by 50s, if they wanted to build 120 by 100 or by 50, that would be appropriate. These are listed as space holders of representative hangar developments, but more specifically, small hangar developments like the H's or larger corporate area like the I's.
As long as we continue our policy of allowing lessees to more or less specify the size of their hangar, whenever we approve a request, we affect future land available for other requests. When that first building goes in on India, that limits us as to what else can go in on India. And there always has to be a first one, and the second one no longer has the same freedom, right down to our last one that on Fox that we approved at the last meeting. That's been an orphan piece of land for 20 years because nobody was willing to build that small a hangar in the available space. That's just the environment we live in.
But here you can also see, just going back to Mr. Snow's comment, the doubling up, like the hotel future, that's where it shows back to back, so you can see that you can put things back to back, it just pushes that road out farther, or the taxi lane hotel. So again, this is just different options that need to be determined, but very easily can happen. It's a matter of how things shift.
So John, is it appropriate for us to say that, you know, as we have the master plan for new development, we say it can't be smaller than this? You cannot build smaller than this. Or you have to, I mean, can we say that this is the lot size and this is the hangar size?
Well, one approach would be, as I think Heber is done, Ogden is wanting to do, Spanish is done. They've gone out and offered RFQs, say who wants to develop hangars of this type? And they have chosen to develop that way. The good news and the bad news of that is you get a very homogenic airport. All of the hangars look exactly alike. The problem is, or maybe it's a good thing, you only have to deal with 2 lessees. Because these 2 megabucks, they own all your hangars. And they rent out to the individual people. So in the airports I mentioned, individual hangar ownership has or is going away. Ogden basically has evicted all of their individual hangar owners in favor of a plan for the mega hangar development. So all of those plane owners have been dispossessed. They're moving to Morgan, they're moving to Bountiful, because they're no longer welcome as a hangar owner in Ogden. And the lawsuits are still pending.
That's a long conversation.
I think if we separate and subdivide, there are some airports that, instead of doing it, the footprint of the hangar itself, it's the plotted area, so then it can be whatever size the hangar, but they're paying for the entire plotted area. There are many airports that do it from there, and so there's not that gap you're talking about. The hangar owner, or the hangar owner pays that land lease from the adjacent land lease to their line, and everybody, there isn't the gaps that we have on ours.
And they're now renting a parking place, which increases our revenue.
Right.
About the only thing that you often see is the split up like this, where on India, oh, excuse me. Sorry about that. India would not be allowed to, someone that wants to build a small hangar, they wouldn't be allowed to build India, even if there was a spot located. And then obviously a big hangar for corporate aircraft wouldn't work on hotel, just because there's not the object-free area, the space to get back to that. So that's how this is laid out, where it's more of size requirements, like the plot size, but the plot wouldn't be, it would be beneficial even if someone had to rent the plot for I-7, not to allow the building of a 50 by 50 hangar, even if they wanted to rent that large space, because it would decrease the opportunity. I mean, it's not just, you would be getting the same ground lease rate, but the utilization of the airport, you don't build an interstate and then limit it to bicycle traffic. So the plot idea works great, but it's also usually sub-broken down to these areas of plots are going to be for corporate hangars, and you're renting the whole plot. These areas of plots are going to be for the smaller hangars, but it's a great way to maximize revenue.
Okay. Any further input? I think we've been here long enough. If there's nothing else, we'll stand adjourned until the April meeting.